Hello and welcome back to the Jobless Bum YouTube channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day today. Today, we are going to be ranking the Premier League logos in a tier list, and we're going to see which ones are really good and which ones are not so good. So, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Starting off our tier list, we do have Arsenal, and I think this is a pretty good logo. You got this nice cannon on there, which is a very unique part of the logo, referencing the name as well. The red and blue are a good color scheme. I don't know exactly what I would do to improve this logo, but I think there could be a little bit more done. And I think perhaps there might be some better logos on the list. But honestly, I'm going to put it in the S tier. I think it's a really good logo. I think it's one of the top logos in the Premier League, and I think it's a really good logo. So we'll put it in the S tier. Next up, we have Bournemouth, and I think this is a pretty simple logo. You got the guy heading a ball, which is a soccer football move, so I think that's pretty cool. And I like his hair is got this slanted quality to it. It looks like it's moving. It adds some movement to the logo, some dynamism, which I think is really cool. The red and the black I think is a good color combination. It's a bit simplistic, and it doesn't necessarily represent Bournemouth that well, but I think it's a pretty solid logo. I think there's probably worse logos on this tier list, so I'll put it in the B tier. I think it's a pretty solid logo. Next up, we do have Brentford, and this is an interesting logo. I like the fact that they do represent their team name in the logo with the B. I think the B is honestly a bit too realistic though, and the fact that it's got this black and yellow color scheme doesn't really fit with the red on this outside of the logo. It looks a bit jarring to me. I think it might have been better if they had made it a bit more stylized. So I think I'm going to put Brentford in the C tier. I think it's a pretty solid logo. At least they tried for something here. So I can't say too much bad about it, but I think it could have been a lot better. So we'll put it in the C tier. Next up, we do have Brighton and Hove Albion, and they are known as the Gulls or the Seagulls, I think. So I think that's what is being represented on this logo. I like it. I like this simple blue and white color scheme. I think it fits right in on the logo. It looks classic, but also modern at the same time because it's pretty simplistic, but it's also got this font looks pretty classic. And overall, I think it's a really good logo. I'm going to put it in the A tier. I think it's really solid, and I'd be proud to have this logo if I was a Brighton fan. Next up, we do have Chelsea, and Chelsea is my favorite team. So I'll admit that I am a little bit biased, but at the same time, I don't see how you could not have this as an S tier logo. This lion in the middle looks pretty menacing. It's holding the staff. It's regal. And you got the roses on the side, which are a nice touch. This yellow outline on the lettering of the name is really cool. Overall, all of these elements, I think, fit and mesh together really nicely. So much so that I'm going to put Chelsea in the S tier. It's one of my favorite logos. Next up, we do have Manchester City, and this one is just meh. Pretty boring. And the ship in the middle, I guess, is a nice touch, but it's just pretty bland, pretty boring, and especially compared to what Manchester City's logo used to be with the eagle. I thought that was a much better logo. So I think Manchester City is a C logo, but I will admit some bias as a Chelsea fan amongst a fellow top 6 rival, so I'll put him in the D tier. It's really not a good logo. They could improve this so much more with some better elements, or maybe even a reverse in concept back to what it was before this logo. Next up, we do have Everton, and this is an interesting logo. I'm assuming this sort of tower thing in the middle is like a Liverpool icon, so I think that's pretty cool. You got the club motto on there too, which is actually pretty unique because I think a lot of these teams have moved away from it. I think Liverpool might have it on there as well still. I can't really see because at least on this one, it's kind of cropped out, but I think that's really cool. It's a nice nod to the past because a lot of the logos in the past used to have that club motto on there. So I think this is a really good logo. I don't know if it's an S tier logo though, compared to some of the logos that are left. I'm going to put this in the A tier. I think it's a really good logo, and yeah, good play on you, Everton. Next up, we do have Fulham, and this one is just so ugly, so bland, so uninspired. You literally just have the FFC and then some black and some white. It's just really bad. They could do so much more. They didn't even try to do anything on this one. It's just so bad. I'm going to put it in the D tier. Come on, Fulham. Do better. Next up, we do have Leeds United, and this one is a really good logo as well. I like the blue and yellow color scheme. I think that's really cool. You got this white rose as well. You got this cursive writing of the initials of the team, which is really cool. I think there's probably a little bit more flair that you could have added to this to make this an S tier logo, but I think this is another rightful entrant into the A tier. I really like this a lot. The design is cool, and the colors are really good as well. So I'm going to put it in the A tier. Next up, we do have Leicester City, and this is an all right logo. You do have the representation of their name, the Foxes. So I think that's pretty cool, but the colors are all right too. This blue and this white is all right. You got a similar issue to the Brentford logo where the animal is drawn semi-realistically, and it somewhat takes away from the logo. Not as much as the Brentford one, because I think these colors fit in a little bit better than the B on the Brentford logo, but I think it's all right. I think you probably could make this logo better. I think it's pretty solid though. We'll put it in the B tier. Next up, we do have Liverpool, and this is a real cool logo, I gotta admit. Even though I am a Chelsea fan and Liverpool and Chelsea have somewhat of a rivalry, just that fact that both of us are top 16. But yeah, I like this gradient on the logo, which I think is really cool. And yeah, you do have the club motto on there, "You'll never walk alone," which is really cool. You got this ornate work on the top. You got these flames and stuff on the bottom. I think it's a really cool logo. I honestly think I'm going to put it in the S tier. I think it's a really good logo. So yeah, we'll put it in the S tier. All right, next up, we do have Newcastle United. And I really like this logo a lot. You got these horses. Are those seahorses? They kind of look like seahorses to me. But you got this little flag at the top, which I think is really cool. It looks very prestigious, very royal, which I think is pretty cool. And I like this black and white stripes on the shield. This is, I think, a perfect example of a classic English soccer logo, which I really like a lot. I like the style, but I think it does look pretty dated, especially compared to some of the other logos on this tier list. Like, I think if you somehow took this Newcastle logo and gave it the Everton or Liverpool treatment, I think you would have an S tier logo. But as it stands right now, I'm going to put it in the B tier. I think it's a really solid logo. And I don't think it's amongst the worst logos, but I think you probably could make this a little bit better. Next up, we do have Nottingham Forest, who are new to the Premier League this season. Welcome on board. The two-time European Cup champions, as evidenced by the stars on their logo. I think Nottingham Forest has a logo which is simplistic, but in the right way, where you're still telling a story with the logo. You're representing the Forest name of the team, and I think it just really looks good. I like the use of the negative space in the middle of the tree because, like, you know, it is white, but you still feel like there's something there, which I think is really cool. And I like the curved lines on here. I think those really add a real cool touch. And I like this classic font. Like, this looks like something you would see on like the front of like a Beatles album in terms of like the font. So overall, I really like this logo a lot. I'm going to put Nottingham Forest in the S tier. Next up, we do have Crystal Palace, and this could have been just a very generic logo with the eagle, but this particular version of the logo also has the representation of the Crystal Palace, which is a very historic monument in London. I think they had some sort of world exhibition there. Needless to say, I like that representation of the history and of the name of the team itself in the logo. I think that's really cool. I think there's probably some other stuff that you could have done to this logo, but I think it's really cool. I think it's probably a B tier, but with the Crystal Palace in the logo, I'm going to put it in the A tier. I think it's a really cool logo. Next up, we do have Southampton. And what I will say about it is I do like the look of it. I think it is really aesthetically pleasing. The simplicity is a really cool looking logo. I think it's a bit generic though, and I don't know exactly what I would do to make the logo better, but I think it, again, is another one of these classic logos that perhaps is just a bit too simplistic for modern standards. Like it could use a modernization, much like the Newcastle logo, so I think I'll put it in the B tier along with Newcastle. But I think it's a really solid logo, and I like it, but I just think you could update it to make it look better. Next up, we do have Tottenham Hotspur, and to be honest, the Spurs logo is very simplistic. It is pretty unique and recognizable with the bird on the logo, so I like that. I like the old-timey soccer ball on there as well. I think it's probably a B tier logo, but since I do have a bit of a rivalry with Tottenham as a Chelsea fan, I'll put him in the C tier. I'll knock him down a tier for bias, but I think it's a pretty solid logo. I think you could do better, but we'll put it in the C tier. Next up, we do have Manchester United, and I really like this red and yellow color scheme. It honestly reminds me of my favorite NFL team, the Kansas City Chiefs. But you got this red devil in the middle, which is really cool as well. You got the old-timey soccer balls, and it overall is just a really cool logo. I hate to say it, but it's a very good logo. I would put it in S tier, but I can't stomach that as a Chelsea fan. So I'm going to put Manchester United in the A tier. It probably should be S tier though, but we'll put it in the A tier. Next up, we do have Aston Villa, and this is an interesting logo. I think the lion is pretty cool on the logo. I don't think it's as good as the Chelsea lion, but I think it's all right. I really don't like the color scheme though. The yellow and the blue is actually a pretty cool touch, but this claret color, I think this little maroon kind of color, I really don't like. I think it's fine. Like, I like that they used more of the light blue because I think I like that color better than the claret. So we'll put Aston Villa in the C tier. I think you could do some, I don't even know what you would do to make this logo better, but it's not very good. So I'm going to put it in the C tier. Then we do have West Ham, and it's kind of a similar issue that I do have with the Aston Villa logo, where I really don't like the colors. I wish they would have used more of the light blue like the Aston Villa logo did, but they didn't. They used this ugly maroonish color on there. Just got these hammers on there. It's a bit too simplistic as well. I think they had some more ornate style designs on the old logo, but it's a bit too simplistic to me. I don't like the colors. I'm honestly going to put West Ham in the D tier. It's not very good, so they definitely could improve this logo, and they should. And last up, we do have Wolves, otherwise known as Wolverhampton Wanderers, but more commonly known as Wolves. And it's a pretty simplistic logo. You do get the point they're coming across though with the wolf on the logo. And I like the colors. The orange and black is pretty cool. I think they probably could make it better by adding some more stuff to it, maybe adding more detail to the wolf on the logo, but I understand what they're going for with the simplistic design, at least. I just disagree with it, but I think it's a really solid logo. I think it's a B tier logo. I think you could do some improvement to it, but I think it's a pretty solid logo as is, so we'll put it in the B tier. I'm going to give you one final chance to look at our completed Premier League logos tier list. Thank you so much for watching our Premier League logos tier list video. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Premier League logo is and what you thought of the tier list. I'd be curious to know. Again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to stay safe.